Hi everybody, Matt Bernie or Dan Illman taking a look back at the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic from Belmont Park Saturday afternoon. It figured to be a major prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf, and on paper it looked like a fantastic betting race. You had the 3-year-old Oscar Performance trying Elders for the first time, and you had a couple of really old, hard-hitting horses in that older division for the turf runners, most notably the Arlington Million champion Beach Patrol. And guess what? Beach Patrol gets it done again here in the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. They go out there, they break from the gate. We know Beach Patrol, he has that beautiful tactical speed, and we also know Oscar Performance, he wants to be forwardly placed.
They both want to be forwardly placed, but the horse that wants to be on the lead is this rank outsider, the number 2 Converge at 147-1, who just runs out there and sets an honest pace. Oscar Performance and Beach Patrol right now are sort of playing a cat and mouse game between themselves, and it really begins to materialize on the backstretch.
You're going to see this horse, like you say, Converge, he's just going to be a complete runoff speed at this point, and really I kind of think you look at this race as if he's not even in it because he's setting some legitimate fractions, but you're quickly going to see there's going to be a gap of about 5 or 6 lengths, even more so than that, between he and Beach Patrol. If you liked Beach Patrol at 5-1, which I know you did, a great pick, situation where you're looking at this thing saying, I'm going to kind of inherit this at some point.
You're going to inherit it at some point, but in the back of your mind and in the back of any fan that backed Oscar Performance, the 1.5 miles, I think, was the question mark. So it became an issue of timing. If you watch the head-on replay of this race, Beach Patrol right now is drafting in towards the inside. His goal, I think, was to sort of eventually sucker Oscar Performance down towards the inside behind this long shot. It did work out that way, and maybe that compromised Oscar Performance just a little bit.
Keep an eye on the big gray horse in the middle of the pack right now. That's Fanciful Angel. Fanciful Angel has been an absolute handful for Arad Ortiz this entire trip thus far. At one point, Arad's almost standing up straight, trying to get this horse to relax. He doesn't want to. You see the fractions. You've got that horse that's out there right now, Converge. They get 3/4 and 13-4. He's quickly going to throw it into reverse. Now, you brought up the race riding piece of information right here. You look at Rosario. He's out 2-3 path, and Oscar Performance, he's stuck in the box.
Oscar Performance is now stuck in the box, and you see he's shuffled out. And Rosario not only realizes this, he realizes I have to go on for home right now before Oscar Performance can extricate himself from this situation. And Beach Patrol, to his credit, immediately opens up the lead. He's got Money Multiplier, his uncoupled stablemate, the number 1 in a drive behind him. Oscar Performance is down towards the inside right now. And then Beach Patrol, known for sort of grinding out his wins and winning by narrow margins, he puts this field to bed very quickly.
He does something he's never done, and that's extend and really blow the doors off this field, coming home in 22-4, and he's going to extend. He eventually ends up winning this thing by 5 lengths. Fanciful Angel, considering all those issues and that rankness early on, he comes along, wins the photo for second, but a giant effort from Beach Patrol.
These were the 1-2 finishers in the Arlington Million. Fanciful Angel, of course, that day trained, I believe, by Marco Botti. Yes. It must have been a gigantic price. They complete the exacta yet again. Oscar Performance perhaps a little bit flat in the stretch. I don't think this trip really worked out for Oscar Performance, but I don't think he answered that question about 1.5 miles, whether that's really his best game at this point of his career.
Beach Patrol, $12 on top. Fanciful Angel rounds out the Chad Brown exacta with a $9 place price, and if you played the exacta for $1, $59.50. Oscar Performance, $4.50 to show, and that rounds out your try for 50 cents, comes back $161. Beach Patrol is now a multiple Grade 1 winner. He goes and he follows up the Arlington Million with this beautiful performance here at Belmont on Saturday afternoon. The distance we know is no issue. You look at him, he's rock solid. 5 of 16 lifetime, almost $1.8 million in earnings. And I got to be honest with you. I never thought we were going to look down and see a 109 Beyer speed figure coming from Beach Patrol at any point in his career, because we kind of felt like we knew what Beach Patrol was. If this is what Beach Patrol is now, where he has tactical speed and he's capable of running a giant speed figure, you got to look at him and say he's a legitimate threat in the Breeders' Cup.
Well, I think you have to consider him a legitimate threat in the Breeders' Cup, although, again, he did have an absolutely beautiful trip in here. And this course, while listed as firm, did take some rain late Friday night into Saturday morning, and perhaps he really appreciated some give in the ground. We never expected this. You're absolutely right. When Beach Patrol runs, he is a gritty, hard-trying sort that usually either gets up to win by a neck or he's going to lose by a head or a half a length. He was unfairly maligned at the beginning of this year when it seemed like he was always the bridesmaid and never the bride. Unfairly maligned as being a horse that lacked the heart to compete in this level. I think that's all a bunch of hogwash, as we saw in the Arlington Million and even in the United Nations, where he dueled a very good horse and it's in the post into the ground and was still fighting out to the wire. He's a legitimate horse. We'll see what they bring in from Europe, but Chad Brown, I think, was a little concerned about the 1.5 miles for both of his runners, Beach Patrol and Fanciful Angel, and I think he's very pleased with the results from both of those horses.
128 time form U.S. rating for Beach Patrol as well. As far as Fanciful Angel is concerned, first time going out for Chad, First time, really, he's been over here for only a handful of weeks. I know he ran in the Arlington Million back in August, but considering he was just an absolute nightmare early on, pulling, never settling, the fact that he finished as well as he did, and then if you watch the gallop out, he blew the doors off Beach Patrol, and that wasn't with Beach Patrol slowing down at all. I kind of wonder if this was a really nice starting off point for Chad. Maybe he's figuring this one out.
Or is this sort of a foreshadowing of things to come? Because Fanciful Angel over there probably was considered a second or third tier European, and we know that the real good ones are waiting in the wings for the Breeders' Cup. And if Fanciful Angel can make it close in Grade 1 races and finish ahead of some of our better horses, Oscar Performance, Sadler's Joy, etc., maybe something really good is coming, and that's a scary thought for any American-based turf runner.
Oscar Performance, there's a couple of things to think about with this horse. One, do you think that the mile and a half is just not going to be up his wheelhouse and going to be his friend? Because if that's the case, the Breeders' Cup's going to be tough.
I think the Breeders' Cup is going to be tough simply because he is still a 3-year-old. He is still growing. He is still figuring things out. This was the class test. He was brilliant when he won the Secretariat. He was brilliant when he won the Belmont Derby. This race, the trip didn't exactly work out. He ran well. He was beaten in the nose for second. I wanted to see him finish a little bit more. I'm not sure if a mile and a half is his best friend right now, but who's to say that down the road in a mile and a half race when he controls the pace? I think that the Rabbit hurt him more than it hurt Beach Patrol.
Okay, makes sense. Sadler's Joy, we know Sadler's Joy's game. He's going to be taken back, and I think he's all about timing. You need to time that run perfectly. Now, the problem is if Beach Patrol has turned into this horse as opposed to the Beach Patrol we've grown to know, you're probably not going to ever be able to beat this horse coming from 15 lengths out of it. But at the same time, do you look at this and say, even with that one horse that went out there and set just a ballistic pace, that maybe if you get a little bit more pressure on a horse like Beach Patrol early, does that help kind of narrow the gap between he and Sadler's Joy? Or is Sadler's Joy simply always going to be a horse best used underneath?
I think that maybe not best used underneath, but I would have to say that his running style always puts him behind the 8 ball. You give him a suicidal pace or a good pace up front. In the races that we saw at Saratoga, the pace seemed to heat up, especially most recently in the Sword Dancer at the right time for him. Sort of at the third part of the race, it heated up. He was able to keep within range and then kick strongly on home. In the race before that, the Bowling Green, he made the early move, and that's not the way you have to ride him. But he's so quirky, no speed. You can't give him daylight until the last possible moment, because if he makes the lead too soon, he loses interest. He's a very talented runner that likes a mile and a half. A horse like this always has a puncher's chance in the Breeders' Cup turf, but he's also up against it from a race and a pace and trip standpoint.
Was Ascend's victory in the Manhattan just one of those one-off instances? Because it doesn't seem like he's back to that up since.
Well, it certainly appears that way, that his race in the Manhattan was a perfect storm. He got a very nice trip that day. He was also much the best at a big price. If you wanted to say that in his subsequent race at Saratoga, he was part of a quick pace and he kind of tired, the Arlington Million was not a disastrous performance by any means. I think a mile and a half's too far for him. I think he's a mile and a quarter horse, but I do think you're getting to the point now where you're wondering whether he's truly Grade 1 class.
Beach Patrol, he's always been a nice horse. He's always been an honest horse. I don't think anybody ever thought that we'd get into the 109, borderline 110 territory.
I think a lot of people were wondering if he was ever going to be considered going into the Breeders' Cup turf, North America's best hope, and it's possible he's there right now.
Certainly, especially with that tactical speed we've seen in the past. He can go to the lead if it's given to him. He can sit just off, very similar to World Approval in that mile division. They have that little bit of versatility that can go so far, even against the European horses. Chad Brown is Chad's World. It's another exacta in a Grade 1 turf race for Chad Brown and company. Beach Patrol gets the job done. A 109 Beyer speed figure winning the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic.